Deep down, all of us know what we should be eating. It's like, we should be eating like salads and meats and eggs and that sort of stuff. But then a lot of us don't truly believe it, and I think that's the main problem. And I see it as a way of, it's almost like when you get into exercise, when you first start, you don't truly believe that it's a good thing, don't you think? Like, you don't truly believe it's going to do you any good. You're like, I don't like this, it feels bad.
If you have if you join the gym just because you're like, I feel like I have to, then you go because you feel like you have to rather than you enjoy it like we do now, you're going to go for the wrong reasons and you won't stick to it. And you're always going to see it in like a negative thing. And I think a lot of people stereotype, they go for like 1 or 2 times and they go, gym's not for me. And it's like, well, it's because you never really wanted it in the first place. If you go to the gym because you want to be there, you'll enjoy it 1,000 times more.
Well, I think my point's slightly different. It's not just like getting into the gym or eating a certain way, but it's like doing it until you actually believe it. Because I think a lot of the young people that I see, they don't believe that giving up the energy drink would make any difference. Or maybe they know it, but they don't truly believe it. And I think there is a difference between knowing and truly believing something. And it's like when I used to eat bad, I would just eat bad and then I would never even think about the consequences. And you don't really think about the consequences until the health problems creep up. And then that's when you actually truly believe. You're like, okay, these decisions are impacting me. And then you start eating right and then you feel the difference. And then that's when you start to believe that eating this way does make a difference. I just think there's a difference there.
So when you're 17, 18, you don't believe that eating a healthy, balanced lifestyle then is going to help you in the future, because all you want to do is eat junk food, drink. You want to be with your friends and live in the moment, and it's not until you actually start having health issues that you're like, actually, maybe I should have, if I didn't done this 10 years ago, like gym, or we say if we had started 10 years earlier, where would we be now? It's hindsight, isn't it? Like, if you can go back to your younger self and be like, you're going to have this issue, you need to start eating healthy now, people will probably take it more seriously, but we don't.
Well,
we don't take it seriously.
I think it's not just believing it, but it's just forming habits.
Yeah,
and I think
if you're asking a 17-year-old, you need to start having a routine and performing healthy and making healthy habits, they're going to tell you to piss off, aren't they? Like,
no, but that's what I mean. Like, as obviously I personally, I did not treat my body right. I didn't eat right. No, and when you're younger, you don't have the foresight to see, this will affect me this way. The decisions I'm making now actually aren't good for my body. And that's why I think when you're younger, you do need someone older, with literally a more developed brain to say, why are you eating that? This is what's going to happen to you. But that's when I go back to belief. It's making believe that that's the case. Because it's different, like when you tell someone, you shouldn't drink that energy drink, by the way, it's not good for you. They're like, I don't give a shit, because they don't believe that. They're like, I like it, makes me feel good. And when I feel tired, I'll have another energy drink. They're caught in this loop. You need someone with an older, more developed brain to somehow show you that, it is a poor decision you're making. And that's sort of the role of an adult in a child's life, isn't it? Because you're there to help them develop, and their brains aren't developed, it's all impulse driven. But then I guess a lot of adults are still ruled by impulse decisions and not foresight, like thinking, how will this affect me in the future? I think I've gone a little bit off tangent here, but that's all I'm really getting at, is I think it's about believing the decisions you're making instead of just making decisions.
I mean, going back to things with what you were saying about kids and stuff, though, like, it's all when they're young and you can kind of have a bit more control over what it is they're eating, and when you're cooking that for them, when they get to the age of being a teenager or when they're more independent and they can choose what they want to do, at that point you have to just kind of hope that what you've taught them sticks and they understand the value of what you're teaching them, but they're still going to make poor decisions, because that's being a teenager and that's being a young adult. At that point, it's down to them to look after their own health, isn't it, really? We can only do so much as parents. I'd like to think that if we have kids, we'll teach them really good habits, but when they reach 16, 17, 18 years old, when they're going to start going to college and stuff, they're going to make their own decision, aren't they?
Yeah, that's where I was actually wanting to lead on to this, in this living by example and living by the way that you believe. And that's the way I am living at the minute, is I try to live through the ways that I believe are good for me. Like, I like to eat healthy foods with less ingredients, I like to exercise, I like to get good sleep, and I like to prioritise those things over, I don't know, a drinking social event, which I would never go to, because that's the way I believe. And I think living by that example is how you teach younger people that there is a different way. And then I can't remember where I saw it, but it's like when you're with a child and you're eating dinner, they'll naturally eat the same things you're eating. And then if you put the healthy vegetable to the side and you don't eat it, the child will instinctively do that without thinking, because they're looking to you for signalling of what to eat. But then obviously they have their own preferences and all those sort of things. So it's not like you can dictate what they eat, but you can lead by example, and hopefully as they grow up, it's those things you teach them by leading by example that stick. And yes, you know, kids want to rebel against what you tell them to do, so I think just living by example rather than telling is probably the best way. Because when I think back to when I was a kid, every time I was told to do something,
You didn't want to do it.
I was pissed off. I was very angry about it because I was just being told to do things I didn't want to do. Whereas the things that were led by example to me, I ended up doing, and those weren't necessarily even a good thing. For instance, smoking weed. My dad sort of showed me that smoking weed is okay, and I ended up smoking weed because my dad was smoking from, I think, since before I was even born, and a daily user. And that signalled to me, leading by example, that is a good thing, and I should be doing that. And I didn't necessarily even know that, but then I got older and I started doing it. And then you realise, that's where I realised that saying, like, you end up turning into your parents is so true. Like, you don't really see it until you get older. You're like, shit, how have I ended up doing the same thing? It's because you end up doing the things that you were shown to you, led by example to you. So that's where I think, for us, for anyone watching, you just need to take control of the decisions that you're making and think, are these the decisions and actions that I want to show to the next generation as the right thing to do? And if you believe that to be the case, then you know, do it. But just, I think it's good to sort of take an account of the things that you're doing. And it's not like this is something I've done overnight. It's something I've iteratively done over years at this point. Years. And I wasn't like this until there was a big health event, and that completely changed my life. And it's crazy how much that one hospitalisation has completely changed my life, my way of thinking, my way of being. It has completely changed my life. It's very interesting. But yes, that's about it. That's all I wanted to say. Have you got anything you want to add?
I think you've covered everything.
Okay, that was just quick thoughts in the car. Thanks for watching.